What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. We're going to do a very quick review tonight of WWE's Royal Rumble 2023. For me, it's always one of those events on the calendar for WWE that I still look forward to, the Rumble being one of the biggest ones. And I have some opinions about this year's Rumble. There's some things that are noticeable and some things that I'm glad to finally see some big payoffs on this show. Absolutely. It is a little bit of a mixed bag, but we'll get into it in this video. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that I always have some free stuff down in the description box for you. If you want to get started with investing and you want to get some free money, essentially free stocks available to you from Robinhood and Webull, you can check down in the links in the description box below and see if any of those things will help you out. But let's talk about what happened at the Royal Rumble 2023 and WWE's momentum now going into this big year for them. There has been people who have kind of pointed out that, and I want to bring this up at the beginning, that having two Rumble matches on the night, one for men, one for women, it kind of dilutes the match a little bit. And I definitely noticed this on this night during the second Rumble match. You know, you were seeing kind of the same kind of eliminations. Somebody goes over the rope and somebody runs at them with a boot and they fall off and they're eliminated. I don't know how many times we saw that on the night. So that is something, it's kind of them putting themselves into a corner with having to do. I think some people have suggested maybe that the Rumble is for the men and maybe Elimination Chamber is the women's version or vice versa or something like that. But the evening started off with the men's Rumble match, and this was booked really interestingly. You had the usual big high moments of guys meeting up with other guys, Brock Lesnar and Gunther squaring off in the ring. Of course, Bobby Lashley getting the elimination on Brock Lesnar, who came in very early in the match, and I think he only lasted like 3 or 4 minutes, which was a big shocker. Lesnar goes crazy after the match. Completely obliterates Baron Corbin, who winds up getting thrown out easily, throwing a temper tantrum. Lashley would get eliminated by Seth Rollins later on, kind of continuing some of that story. But Gunther was the big story here. He lasted all the way to the end of coming in at number 1 and going all the way to the end. The man he faced at the end was the returning Cody Rhodes, which had already been kind of given away, or just had been given away. Cody comes in at number 30. There's some interaction with him and Seth Rollins. But Jake Paul, amazingly enough, was also one of the big highlights in this one. Jake Paul eliminating Seth Rollins. And before that, him and Ricochet had probably one of the coolest spots you're going to see this year in wrestling. Ricochet's on one side of the ring on the outside apron. Logan Paul's on the other side of the ring on the outside apron. They're talking smack to each other, and they both do springboard clotheslines into each other and crash in midair in the middle of the ring and crumple in a heap. It looked perfect. The timing was perfect. Say what you will about either one of these guys, that was probably one of the sickest spots I have ever seen. That's on that Ricochet highlight reel. Ricochet's going to have something very important when his career is over, and that's going to be highlights of all of this crazy stuff. And this is definitely one of them. That was an amazing spot. But again, it goes back to kind of my point with this, is that this Royal Rumble was a lot more about amazing spots and moments than I think the match was good. I wouldn't say, even though Michael Cole and the word was that this is one of the best Royal Rumbles ever, I still put the Flair one, where Flair won a title in '92, above this one. And I think the ending was dragged a little bit. I understood why they did it the way they did, but they could have brought Cody in earlier and had him, they could have done it a different way. But, him and Gunther, they did provide a very entertaining, a couple of false finishes in the final elimination, but ultimately it was Cody getting the elimination, winning the men's Royal Rumble, and now going to Wrestle Mania to face the Tribal Chief. What most people expected was going to happen, and I thought this Rumble match, it was a good Rumble match. It wasn't the best ever, but it definitely had its entertaining moments. Some of the pacing in it was off a little bit, but overall, it was an enjoyable Royal Rumble match. Then we had this Lights Out match, and this Lights Out match was Bray Wyatt against LA Knight. And there was a lot of questions people were asking about what did the Undertaker whisper to Bray Wyatt Raw 30 this past week. Well, none of that actually came into play. This match is... I am a person who likes weird stuff. I write horror and urban fantasy. That's one... I've always loved horror and urban fantasy. I love characters like The Undertaker, Jake the Snake Roberts, so on and so forth. This match was a strange one from the perspective of you have this kind of dark, sinister Bray Wyatt atmosphere to this match, but then the match itself is basically a glow-in-the-dark match. So LA Knight had some extremely bright yellow trunks on that really lit up when they put the black lights on. And Bray Wyatt had this weird face paint and these contacts and everything else. Visually, it's very creative, and I definitely give it an A for creativity. As far as an entertaining wrestling match, not so much. And the ultimate ending, Bray beats LA Knight, but that's like kind of inconsequential because the real conclusion of the match was him dragging LA Knight up to the stage, and then Uncle Howdy appears on top of this platform, and then he does a dive, completely misses LA Knight, by the way, but dives in through the little staging they have, and all the flames go up, and it's a lot of special effects and stuff. And then you get some of the members of the Firefly Funhouse in human life-size form dangling around, and it was very strange and very odd. Again, creativity, I give them an A for it, but I don't know if this quite worked well. And I think for me, again, one of the big reasons it didn't work well is that you've got this really dark and mysterious match with a very blatant neon, greenish, hueish, almost absinthe kind of color to everything to represent Mountain Dew with its logo plastered everywhere. So it's very weird to have a kind of supposedly serious dark character sponsored by Mountain Dew. It's like there's a bit of incongruity in the tone there. And the crowd started losing the crowd a little bit during the middle of the night. We had Alexa Bliss challenging Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship. This match was kind of a paint-by-the-numbers match, which I was surprised at because these are two of the better female performers in WWE's women's division. And you can even see Bianca kind of realizing that they had kind of lost the crowd a little bit through the match. She tried her best to save it, but there wasn't much salvaging this. And again, and this would be a theme of the night, it was less about the match and more about the story, because after Bianca retains the championship, the Bray Wyatt funky 9 Inch Nails video editing thing comes on the screen, and something about, did you really think you're in charge? And Alexa Bliss is left in the ring kind of looking. It's like the conclusion of this match and the match before it, the match didn't matter. It wasn't about the match. The pinfalls were also almost inconsequential. It was what came after the pinfalls, and that would also play into other matches on this night as well. The Women's Royal Rumble match, I think, again, it kind of suffered from the fact that we'd already seen a Rumble match not that long before this one, and they had the 90-minute intervals. And the women's division right now didn't really have a big, shocking surprise person that the fans could think about and look forward to seeing coming into the ring, although they did have a major surprise at the number 30 spot. But this match was pretty much dominated by Rhea Ripley, who took some pretty nasty bumps. Again, like she would take bumps in the worst way possible in this match, on her neck, on her ass, on her forehead at one point in time. Like, honey, like that is a tough girl, but that's a lot of woman, man. That is all woman, and she is tough as nails, and she toughed it out. Went all the way from number 1 to the very end. The big surprise in this was, well, one was Michelle McCool, who was sitting at ringside, who gets announced. She runs into the match. By the way, Booker T was the big surprise in him and Logan Paul in the men's match. But Michelle McCool, she was in there for a minute. She did her stuff. The whole thing with Bayley's group, they controlled most of the main part of the match. They were kind of eliminating a lot of people as a team through most of the bulk of the match, including Becky Lynch, who got 2 of them out but wasn't able to get Bayley out. A lot of NXT call-ups here. The crowd kind of falling flat near the end of the match. Comes down to Asuka, Liv Morgan, and Rhea Ripley. And Asuka, Joseph blowed a mist into Rhea Ripley's face. Of course, Rhea ducks. It hits Liv. She's like blinded and they're all standing on the apron here, which I think was a pretty cool spot. Much better than the blatant product placements Street Fighter 6 spot that they actually had a spot on the apron. This is how I will talk about that later on. I'll remind myself to talk about that later on. But this spot with the women on the apron was pretty good. So Rhea does a reverse 619 as a shout out to Dominique. and knocks Asuka off the apron. And then it's down to her and Liv Morgan. And of course, this is tied into some their old partnership as a tag team a while ago. Liv looks like she might be able to come back despite the fact that she can't see. Rhea is hanging on it literally by a thread, hanging from the top rope. Her feet are dangling. And for a split second, I was like, are they going to give this to Liv Morgan? I don't see how they're not going to, just because Rhea's just done. All she has to do is just tap her. She just needs to flick her, and she's off. But Rhea, resourceful as hell, lifts her legs up. This is just all showing off this woman's amazing strength. Lifts her legs up, catches Liv by the neck, and then flips her over out off the apron to the floor. Rhea Ripley is your winner. Again, the match, not so great, but the finish was really, really cool. I really liked that finish, that match. Again, moments. We didn't get into, there was we didn't have any Hardys. When I say Hardys, don't get excited. It's not Matt or Jeff back in WWE. It's a country music star, which some of the country music fans I know said that's not country. Okay, I don't know much about. It's the one form of music I don't know much about. It's country music, so it was what it was. I didn't watch it. Then we get into the main event, which is really what I tuned into, and I've tuned in for, and I think a lot of people tune in for. Roman Reigns defending the Undisputed Universal World Heavyweight Championship against Kevin Owens. Sami Zayn is at ringside, and again, the match is kind of inconsequential. Kevin Owens actually had a pretty nasty botch in the middle of the match, which was a little unfortunate to see. But the match was a storyline match. Most of this, it seemed like this whole night was just to set up other stuff. And the match wasn't much of anything, but after Roman does get the win, after having some conflict with Sami Zayn outside the ring about whether or not to get the chair or not, that played out, and after Roman won the match, does get the win over Kevin Owens, retains the title, and then afterwards the Usos come down, they're all happily beating up on Kevin Owens, they handcuffed him to the top rope, and Roman's about to smash Kevin Owens with a steel chair. But Sami kind of stops him and is like, look, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. So they did this really well because you're looking at all of these beats. Like at any one of these beats could be reason for Roman to hit Sami or Sami to hit Roman. So it's like, okay. And it even did the thing where Sami's kind of looking down at the chair, kind of considering it. And Roman turns his back to him. And the way the shot was lined up, it was like, is Sami going to hit him in the back? And then Roman turns around like, okay, that's not it. Then they start making fun of Sami crying over having it to end Kevin Owens with the chair. And then Roman starts bullying him, gets in his face, and pie faces him a couple times. And you see that was it for Sami. Sami started snapping, and then he had enough. Sami unloads on Roman with the chair. The pop when that happened, the roar, you can even hear it in the replay. They cranked the audio, but it was like the speakers were blown almost from the roar of the crowd cheering for that. It is, I have said, without a doubt, it's one of the best storylines WWE's done for the last 10 years. It is the best storyline in wrestling right now. And that was the end of it. Sami Zayn finally hitting Roman. The Usos and Solo kind of sitting there a little bit shocked. Then they have to go after, Sami, and, he obviously betrayed the tribal chief. They beat the living tar out of him. But then it even gets more interesting because Jey Uso, who originally didn't want Sami in the group, decides he's not going to help beat down Sami. And then there's this crazy moment that I didn't see coming, and Jey actually leaves the ring, which this all ties back, way back to when Roman first started this whole head of the table thing and turning heel. It was a conflict between him and Jey at the very beginning of this whole Bloodline thing, and that's kind of come back around. And with Jey walking off, refusing to help the Bloodline beat up poor Sami Zayn, no longer Sami Uso. Everybody lost their Ucey. Their inner Ucey was gone, and they literally beat the inner Ucey out of Sami Zayn with that steel chair, left them laying in the middle of the ring. So we leave the show, and again, this was the part everybody wanted to see. This was the most interesting, the most exciting part of this whole show. This is why I sat for 4 hours through this show just to get to this part, and they delivered on this part. And now we're left with what's going on with the Bloodline. Sami's obviously out. There's going to have to be some reconciliation. Because the way Sami left, it didn't look like he wanted to. It's more like Roman pushed him to the point of leaving. And I think that was the best way to resolve this. Instead of making it like, aha, it was a plan all along, or Roman just losing his cool, it's Roman pushing Sami to do something he didn't want to do and then bullying him for the last time. I like the way they resolved the storyline. The problem is now, I mean, there's more to the storyline, obviously. There's going to be a conclusion with it. And where does Jey Uso fit in all this? Very good stuff. But now the question is, and this is the question I've had, is like, my concern is watching the rest of the show is that where are we going? Are they going to have another storyline that can be as good as this, as they've had for the last 9 months with this Sami Zayn Uso story, Bloodline storyline? This was kind of a lightning in a bottle storyline in a lot of ways. And watching the rest of the show, I'm not so sure if they've got anything as good, anywhere near as good, or could potentially be as good as what they've had with this Bloodline thing. But I thought this part was done well. The finish of the women's match was done well. The whole Ricochet Logan Paul spot was really good. Some of the big moments in the men's Rumble match were pretty good. But, I mean, again, 4 or 5 moments for a 4-hour show. The show was, again, more about what happened after the matches than the actual matches themselves. At least, especially for the 3 singles matches. And the 2 Rumble matches were, kind of everybody predicted that Cody and Rhea Ripley would win them. So nothing of a big surprise there, nor of a big disappointment for the fans, except people who were expecting Sami Zayn to be in the Rumble match, which they never said he was going to be in. Now, my one problem another problem I had is that I just noticed, and I don't know if it was just tonight or if it's been this bad before, but the product placement, the Mountain Dew product placement. I thought that at one point in time it would get ridiculous with the commercialism in WWE's pay-per-views and programming. I mean, like, when we got 1 or 2 commercials back in the day, it was like, I don't know about commercials and pay-per-views. And now you got, like, literally 5 minutes of commercials in the middle between matches. Product placement, a whole match around a product placement thing. Then we actually, we have a spot. Literally, they use 2 women with Chinese-inspired characters to have a fight on the ring apron like a Street Fighter 2 game would be to promote a Street Fighter. I mean, I know how I feel. I'm not wild about that stuff. This is the kind of thing that, and I don't know, are we going to see more of this once and if WWE is sold? That they're just going to go full on consumerism. Let's just keep advertising and use we don't care about the storylines. Yeah, you had your little Roman Bloodline thing, Hunter, but no, what we're going to do, we're going to put ad placements in matches now. Matches are going to be revolved around sponsorships and commercials. We're literally selling you products in the story of wrestling matches, and in the actual spots in wrestling matches are designed for nothing but to sell our audience a product. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but of course, with all the news about Vince coming back, this show felt like a step backwards in a lot of ways. It felt like this felt a lot more like WWE from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, the one that I was not very enamored with after them being marginally better over the last 9 months. And again, now we'll see where the Bloodline, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso story goes. There may be some bullets still left in that chamber, but after that's done, when they wrap that up, they got maybe another month or 2 of that up until WrestleMania. But I don't see, from looking at the rest of the card, I don't see anything else. Certainly not the Bray Wyatt stuff, which kind of fell flat tonight. I don't see anything else on the horizon that's going to be as good. But then again, they've got plenty of time to get there. And I'm now really curious as how they're going to work this whole. How is Cody going to fit into this now? Since now the road is clear to WrestleMania, Cody challenging Roman for the championship. We'll have to wait and see. But that was my review of WWE's Royal Rumble 2023. Again, average show. Mostly about the moments, not so much about the wrestling matches. But the moment at the end of the show more than made up for it, and was probably one of the best conclusions to an angle we've seen in many, many years. And it's really not even a conclusion. It's just a peek in it to go to what is now going to be Act 3 of this storyline, which is the conclusion after the betrayal. Very good 3-act structure. It's a very long 3-act structure, but it's a very good 3-act structure for this feud that they've done with the Bloodline and Sami Zayn. But I want to know what you guys think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until next time, I'll see you guys here for more news, rumors, and reviews on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.